Rockford Sulphur Classic Rocks, 96.7 The Eagle. Joining me, special guest. So happy to have her. It's been a long time since I've talked to her. Nicole Briscoe from ESPN. How you doing today, Nicole?
It is so good to hear your voice. I'm happy to join you.
It's been a long time. How things been?
It's been really good. Been busy. Work, family, kids. I've got a couple of those now.
How old are the kids?
My oldest is 4.5, and my little one is 2. So, right in that stage where you like them most of the time, but sometimes the one screams and you think, is she dying or is she just being 2? And it's like, oh, no, she's just being 2. Yeah.
And that'll keep you busy along with work. I don't know how you do both.
I don't think I sleep as much as I should. Whenever I see those studies that say you need to get 8 hours of sleep a night, I'm like, that's just, it's not possible. I have to get up for work at 3:20 in the morning.
Wow.
To do the show. We're on at 7. We're on 7 to 10 on ESPN and ESPN2. It's early. And then I get home and I spend time with the kids and I have to work out and then, cook dinner and all that kind of stuff. And then they go to bed. And the next thing I know, I'm going to bed because it's, 8:30 and 3:20 rolls around in a hurry. And I turn into a pumpkin, so, yeah. But there's nowhere in there is 8 hours a possibility.
Oh, no, it just doesn't happen. And how's the hubby? How's Ryan doing?
He's good. He's having a good year in the championship. They've got, 2 races left. I think they're second right now, but only by a handful of points. If they can finish up the year and be as consistent as they were at the beginning of the season, he's gonna win himself a championship.
It would be great for you guys. After all these years, all the hard work.
I know, exactly. Good for him.
So you're coming to town for a special event on Thursday, September 13th. It's called Sports Stories. It's going to be at the Rockford Bank and Trust Pavilion at Aldine Golf Club. But first of all, this place is incredible. Have you seen it yet?
I've heard. No, I haven't. I was home for a little bit in the beginning of August, and my dad actually has a golf tournament that he hosts every year for one of the professional organizations that he belongs to, and they're having their event at this facility, and he's like, it's beautiful, it's brand new, and it was telling me some of the details about it. So I'm pretty excited to check it out. A lot has changed. I get home every once in a while, once or twice a year, but when you go home to visit family, you're home, you're visiting your family, and you kind of live in this little home bubble. You don't maybe get out as much. But I had the chance to sort of get out a little bit more in the last couple of trips home, and it's just grown and changed so much since I was working there and since I was growing up. It's so much different now.
I'm talking to Nicole Briscoe from ESPN. Let's go back a little bit. So you went to Hononegah, right?
Yes.
Grew up in Roscoe. What kind of activities were you in at Hononegah?
I was Palms, so the dance team, and a cheerleader for a season in there. I played softball when I was a little kid. My brother played baseball and football, so we were a very active, sports family and things like that. But the cheerleading and dance, and I did competitive dancing with a studio in the area as well. That was sort of my thing. If you ever saw me shoot a basketball, you would understand that basketball is certainly not my game. And we're a football family. Obviously, I didn't play, but sort of grew up watching, and that's where I kind of get my love of sports from.
Did you want to be involved with sports since you were little, or is this something that kind of came along later? No,
I did. It's really since I was little. I think you can go back to me being, 11 to 12 years old, asking me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and the answer was I wanted to be the Monday Night Football sideline reporter. So, I'm not far off from what my 11-year-old dream job was. It's kind of funny, but I think I remember sitting on the couch one day with my mom, and I was a very inquisitive kid. I was 11 during the first Gulf War, and I was maybe I was scared a little bit by what was going on in the world. So the way that I maybe dealt with that was I wanted to know everything that was going on, and I watched Tom Brokaw, and I would watch the news. And it was a much different. You didn't have the 24-hour news cycle, so you would sit down and watch the evening news, and I remember pulling out my pink bean bag, and I just wanted to know what was going on. And that sort of way about me led my mom one day to saying, and I was always a Green Bay Packers and Chicago Cubs. Those are my my 2 big teams. My mom saying to me, you could do that one day. This doesn't have to be just a fan thing. This could be your career. And she sort of explained to me options and started pointing out, I mean, I'm 11 at the time, pointing out people like Leslie Visser at the time and, Andrea Kramer on the sidelines and people like that who really did pave the way for people like me to be where and do what I'm doing now. And one thing led to another. Now, and I still say this, I've said it for years and years and years, if you would have said to me that I would have spent the bulk of my career in motorsports, I literally would have called you out because it made no sense.
Right.
So it's definitely taken like a weird path to get to where I am and a lot of unexpected twists and turns and great opportunities along the way. But like I said, the 11-year-old who dreamed of being the Monday Night Football sideline reporter, I host SportsCenter. Like, that's not really that far off from the 11-year-old's version of a dream job. I don't think I've failed in trying to reach that too badly.
Nicole Briscoe from ESPN. She's coming to Rockford on Thursday, September 13th for Sports Stories at the Rockford Bank and Trust Pavilion at Aldine Golf Club. Fast forward, now you're involved with ESPN and living the dream job. Is there anything else you want to do? Is there somewhere else you can go?
The easy answer to that is, well, yeah, of course there's someplace else I'd want to go. I learned a really long time ago to never say never, and I think that sort of comes from the racing side of things. Like, it didn't make sense for me to do motorsports. I didn't grow up a racing fan. I wasn't part of it. And then you look back on the last 10 years, and I spent the bulk of the last 10 years involved in motorsports. And then, oh, by the way, I married a guy who races for a living. So life sort of presents all sorts of opportunities and twists and turns, and maybe I didn't dream of sitting on the couch of the Today Show or Good Morning America 10 years ago, but who's to say that maybe isn't my ultimate dream job now? And life takes you in all sorts of crazy places. And we've had this conversation before about athletes, and we kind of went through it when we watched LeBron James make his decision to go from Cleveland, to Los Angeles. The reason you make decisions that you make as a 23-year-old is much different than the way you make your decisions when you are a 38-year-old mom of two, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, like, when LeBron went to Miami, he was chasing the championship. He was chasing, like, the glory. But now that he's gone back to Cleveland and now he's going to L.A., what is he chasing? Is it about his family and things like that? So it's like now I see myself making decisions about, my family, and they come first, and my job security and being able to take care of them and give them the best life that I possibly can as a mom. So, I guess I'm really happy in my career, and I'm excited for what could come next. But I'm just really happy with my life in general.
And not a lot of people get to do that. I'm talking to Nicole Briscoe from ESPN. As someone from the area but now lives outside of the area, what do you think about some of the sports things that are happening here in Rockford? I mean, we're getting some names out there.
I mean, I kind of joked, too. It's not just about some of the names that have popped out up there from the area, but, when I was growing up, there was SportsScore, but there wasn't SportsScore 2.
Right.
There was no need for SportsScore 2. Like, Rockford has become an area where, and it's hard because Rockford has to compete against places that have beaches or, if you're trying to bring in large soccer tournaments or baseball tournaments or softball tournaments, you are competing against some of those destination cities that can offer a beach or Disney World nearby or things like that. But Rockford has really grown in a way that makes it competitive in that landscape. But too, just, from my days covering NASCAR, I mean, obviously Danica Patrick is a name that we all know. She's from Roscoe. She and I went to the same high school. Chad Knaus, crew chief for Jimmy Johnson. He grew up in Rockford. John Darby was one of the key players in, NASCAR's sort of governing body. His daughter and I went to school at, like, in the younger years, like Kinnickinnick, Ledgewood, those days. So, like, there are all sorts of random ties that you find back with people in that same area. Plus, I actually work with someone now, Jen Latta. She used to work at WREX as well. We weren't there at the same time, but she's at ESPN now, whatever. And sometimes you hear people say things like, oh, well, I don't have that opportunity because I'm not from name your big city. That is absolutely not the case. Just look at what Rockford's been able to do. Fred VanVleet going out and doing the things that he's done and the success that he's had, not only in college, but in the NBA and sort of the industry and the brand that he's building around himself and Danica and people like that. You don't have to be from Chicago. You can be from the smaller places around it. You are what you make of yourself and what you put out there. And, Rockford's provided a great foundation for a lot of people.
When you come into town, what do you got to do? I mean, obviously you have to go visit your parents and the family, but what else do you like to do? You go to Beefaroo and get some cheddar fries, or what's the deal?
I am not, maybe this makes me, anti-Rockford. I've never been a Beefaroo person.
Okay.
And I'm not a huge meat eater in my, adult days. So, no, my big thing is the cheese. Most of my family is from Wisconsin, and Roscoe's obviously, a stone's throw away. So my big thing is, the cheese curds.
Okay.
When I was there in August, I basically tried to OD on cheese and cheese curds. I made it my mission to figure out who had the best cheese curds, and, you go to the restaurants and who has the best fried cheese curds. I made it my mission to figure out who it was. And the really crappy part about it is I get terrible migraines that are triggered by dairy.
Oh, no.
Right. And I basically OD'd myself into this killer migraine for 3 days because all I was doing was eating cheese. And you know what? I don't know what this says about me, but I still ate the freaking curd. Even though I was having a headache, I still ate the curd. It was this thing. I'm training for a half marathon and potentially a marathon, and I'm doing all this stuff, and I was like, this is my last sort of hurrah before things get really serious. And I doubled down on my cheese obsession.
Where did you find the best cheese curds?
The best cheese curds actually come from this little place in Beloit. It's the definition of hole in the wall, and you're like, where are you taking me? They get their fresh curds on Thursday.
Okay.
And they're just the best. I cannot beat them. And then there was this little place also in Wisconsin, but further north on the way to the racetrack. I couldn't even tell you the name of the restaurant, but they had the best fried curds. Yeah. I ate my fair share. Yeah.
Good for you.
I came home and I literally came home and I started a Whole30 to properly detox, to get it out of my system. Yeah, it's bad.
I'm talking to Nicole Briscoe from ESPN. I have to ask you, how does one become a Packer fan and a Cub fan? That's something I will never understand.
I know. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay, so the first thing you have to know about me is my entire family, mom and dad's side, they're all from Wisconsin. In fact, most of my relatives live in Wisconsin. And I think they all bleed green and gold. And I think for me, my Packer fandom actually starts in the fact that growing up, every Sunday was about going to name your relative's house and watching the Packer game with family, right?
Right.
And then when you're 6, you don't maybe understand the true concept of the game, but you do it, and then it's oh, this is fun, and the next thing you know, you're actually a fan. And remember 1987, and the Bengals were supposed to win the game, and Boomer Esiason didn't, and then they didn't make the playoffs because that was before Don Majkowski. I remember all this stuff, right? So my fandom, I think, is rooted in the fact that to me, football is about family.
Right.
But I wasn't really a baseball fan until we moved when I was 7 to Roscoe, and my dad's company, they have season tickets to Wrigley. So the very first baseball game I went to was a Cubs game. And
okay.
It starts off rooted in family, and you go to a ballpark with your dad and you do all the things, and I remember my dad telling me stories about Wrigley and the ivy, and we went early in the season at that point, and the ivy isn't green, and what's on the wall back there, and just sort of some of the stories, and I kind of fell in love with the place. So we are the weird ones in my family. The rest of my family, they are Packers and Brewers. So whenever the Brewers and the Cubs play, it's just massive talking back and forth between, if you're watching me on SportsCenter, I will actually call out members of my family when the Cubs beat the Brewers. Because it's a thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because I can do that and they can't. So it's whatever. I'm terrible.
Nicole Briscoe from ESPN. She's coming to town Thursday, September 13th at the Rockford Bank and Trust Pavilion at Aldine Golf Club. They're going to be there along with Jody Deary from Rockford Speedway and Kenny Gold from Team USA Boxing, 1988 Olympic bronze medalist. It's going to be a great day of sports talking.
It is, and I think they just added another panelist. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to say who it is yet, but they did add another panelist for our panel. You know what's funny? And you're going to laugh at this. So I have to give like the quote-unquote keynote speech at this. Do you know who has an intense fear of public speaking?
Is it you?
Me. I can talk in front of a camera. I can do this. It's fine because I don't see the people looking at me.
Right.
But to stand into like a room with a microphone and just have like eyes on me, oh, terrified. So this is a great endorsement. Come, please join me for Sports Stories. I'm sure I'll give a great.
You're gonna panic and you're gonna faint. You're gonna sweat a lot.
Exactly. Just give me cheese curds and wine, and I'll be fine.
Nicole Briscoe from ESPN, thank you so much for taking the time. It's always great to talk to you. If you want to find out more about the event, go to gorockford.com. It's Rockford's home for Classic Rock 96.7, The Eagle.